Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Too often, we hear the narrative that women are subjugated in Islam, that they are neglected, have no value, and with no rights whatsoever. However, this is a common misconception that comes from a lack of understanding of our religion, because in truth, Islam offers an empowering framework for women, rooted in both the Quran and in the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. When we talk about this, let us first begin with the foundation, the male and female, and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. This verse makes it clear that gender is not a basis for superiority in Islam. Rather, piety and righteousness is how we are judged in the eyes of Allah. The Quran emphasizes that both men and women are spiritual equals, responsible for their own actions and capable for attaining their own high spiritual status. We can look at the example of Sayyidah Fatima, which is often cited as a model of female empowerment in Shia tradition. She was a woman of immense knowledge, spiritual authority, and moral leadership. In her famous khutbah Fadaq, Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam, Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam exposed, not only did she expose Abu Bakr and his army's wrongdoings, she also publicly asserted her own rights, demonstrating that women are not to be silent and judged, but are to be heard and respected. We can also look at Lady Khadija, the wife of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was one of the first to accept Islam at the time of our Prophet. Not only that, she also contributed greatly to the Islamic society. She was a great contributor to the Islamic empire and growing and expanding it through her wealthy business. She was not a regular woman. She was a strong woman who, through her very expanded business, let Islam grow, not only in Saudi Arabia, but also in foreign parts of the world. We can also look at Sayyidah Zainab, Lady Zainab. If it wasn't for Lady Zainab, who had publicly exposed and humiliated the wrongdoings of Yazid and his army, we would not be here in this masjid, having our programs for Muharram, remembering the tragedy of Karbala. So it is very important for us to remember the women in our society who have helped in contributing for us to remember and know about the past, just in general. In the book of Najj al-Balagha, saying 234, Imam Ali alayhi salam has said about women, women are the equals of men in terms of dignity and humanity. This highlights the emphasis that the Imams themselves have placed on gender equality, not only in spiritual matters, but also in social, political, and economic contexts. Long before the modern feminist movement, Islam granted women economic independence. In the 7th century, women in many parts of the world were often seen as property, with no financial or legal rights. Islam revolutionized this perception. The Quran gave women the rights to own and manage their own property, and we can see this in Surah An-Nisa in verse 32. For men is a share of what they have earned, and for women is a share of what they have earned. This verse underscores the fact that women are entitled to their earnings and their own wealth. Islam granted women the right to work, own businesses, and engage in trade, rights that were totally unheard of at the time. We can look at just the way that Islam was so ahead of its time through these aspects. Very ahead of its time, so we should feel extremely lucky to believe in a faith that is as fair as this. One of the most significant forms of empowerment is education. People gain authority, power, respect through knowledge. knowing what they're doing, how they act, and how they speak. So when we look at Islam and how it stressed the significance of attaining knowledge for both men and women, mashallah, we should feel extremely lucky again to believe in a faith that is as fair as Islam. Alhamdulillah. In the book of Al-Kafi, volume 1, hadith 815, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has famously said, seeking knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim, male and female. In this simple yet profound statement, the Prophet ﷺ made it clear that education is not a privilege limited to one gender. The pursuit of knowledge is a right and responsibility for all believers, and it is through education that women empower themselves and contribute meaningfully to society. Islam also offers profound empowerment within a family structure as well. Contrary to the belief that Islam promotes male dominance, the Holy Quran clearly establishes the rights of women within marriage and family life. We can look at Christianity. In Christianity, it is highly recommended, like how us Muslims have mustahab. For the Christians, it is considered mustahab for a woman to attain her husband's last name after marriage. In Islam, however, depending on who you follow, your marja, or whatever you follow, it is actually not recommended for a woman to take her husband's last name after marriage. Yes, you can take your husband's last name if you wish, but add it to your own current last name. Because Islam says a woman should not get rid of her own identity for the sake of marriage. You must keep your own identity. Stay yourself. Because marriage is not worth losing your identity. Of course, take your husband's last name, but don't lose your father's name, your lineage, your family. In Surah Al-Rum, verse 25, which is the most frequently cited verses regarding marriage, states the following: "And of his signs is that he created you from yourselves mates that you may find tranquility in them, and he placed between you affection and mercy." This verse highlights the Islamic view of marriage as a relationship based on mutual love, respect, and mercy. Women have the right to choose their spouse, and no marriage is valid without the woman or the man's consent. Both parties must be content, happy, and love one another for a marriage, for it to be halal. You cannot be in a marriage you are not happy with, because that is your spouse, your life partner. How are you going to expect a happy life if you are not content with your life partner? So it's very important for us to remember that. Moreover, once married, women retain their individual identity, their financial independence, and the right to seek a divorce if necessary. In conclusion, Islam does not see women as inferior or subordinate to men. Rather, Islam honors women, elevates their status, and gives them rights that were revolutionary for the time, and remain so today. Women in Islam are empowered spiritually, intellectually, socially, and economically. So, as Muslims, we should take pride in our faith's rich tradition of female empowerment. The Quran and the traditions of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, provide a robust framework for this empowerment. It is our duty to ensure that this message is continued forward, not just by our words, but by our actions, by supporting and uplifting the women in our communities. May Allah grant us the strength to uphold justice and equality for all, and may He empower the women of our ummah to continue and reach their highest potential. I want to thank you all for the time you have given me tonight. By Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, salawat.